All right. We're going to redo our intro because we accidentally had the LOTM stuff up. But here we are. It's been a while. It almost feels like it's been a quote-unquote nightmare, right? Since we've last read this series. I apologize that we have not been reading this once or at least twice a week, just because Lord of Mysteries takes up so much time because it's such a long series. But here we are. We're back. We're going to take it slow. The goal is to just read for about like 40 to 50 minutes. And hopefully make this once a week. Knock on wood, twice a week. And this doesn't overlap with the Lord of Mysteries time. And that way, I think we should be able to time management. But we'll see. Knock on wood, everything works out, and we actually do keep this going weekly at least until we finish Lord of the Mysteries. So if you guys are ready and you guys are excited, here we go. Shadow Slave, Chapter 8, Nothing at All. I think it's been like 3 months since I've last read this, right? It's been like 3 months. Oh, wow. It's been a cool minute. All right, Chapter 8. Don't worry. Because I couldn't find anybody on YouTube that's been reading this, I've just been listening to myself. Yo, no? We're only going to be reading for like 40 minutes. Chapter 8, Nothing at All. Because the monster isn't dead, I can't even read. It's been so long. These ominous words hung in the silence. 3 pairs of eyes wide and staring right at Sunny. Why do you say that? After thinking about it, Sunny came to the conclusion that the tyrant was indeed still alive. His reasoning was... You see, I remember that. We never killed him. You see, we never killed the tyrant. After thinking about it, Sunny came to the conclusion the tyrant was indeed still alive. His reasoning was pretty straightforward. He did not hear the spell congratulating him on slaying the creature after it fell off the cliff, which meant that it was not slain. But he couldn't explain that to his companions. He pointed it. The monster jumped from an incredible height to land on this platform, yet it wasn't harmed at all. Why would it be killed by falling off the platform? Neither Hero nor the slaves could find a flaw in his arguments. Sunny continued, which means that it's still alive somewhere down the mountain. So by going back, we will be delivering ourselves into its maw. Shifty cursed loudly, crawled closely to the bonfire, staring into the darkness with terror in his eyes. Scholar rubbed his temples, mumbling. Of course, why didn't I realize it myself? Hero was the most stoic of the 3. After thinking it over, he nodded. Then we go up over the mountains past, but not at all. He glanced in the direction where the tyrant had fallen. If monster is still alive, there's a high possibility that it will return here and then pursue us, which means that the time is of the essence. We will need to move as soon as the sun rises. He gestured to the torn bodies littering the platform. We can't allow ourselves to rest the whole night anymore. We need to gather supplies now. If there was a chance, I would have liked to give these people at least a humble burial after gathering all the slaves that died, right? I would have liked to give these people at least a humble burial after gathering all that we can from them. And then I think also some of the soldiers died, but alas, fate has also decided otherwise. Hero rose to his feet and brandished a sharp knife. Shifty tensed up as he watched the blade carefully, but then he relaxed, seeing that the young soldier showed no signs of aggression. Food, water, warm clothes, firewood, that is what we need to do. Let's split up and accomplish one task each. Then he pointed at him with the tip of his knife. I will carve the oxen carcass to get us some meat. Scholar looked around the stone platform, most of it drowned in deep shadows, and grimaced. I'll look for the firewood. Shifty also glanced left and right, which was strange gleam in his eyes. Then I'll go find us something warm to wear. Sunny was the last one left. Hero gave him a long look. Most of the water was stored on the wagon, but each of my fallen brothers was carrying a flagon. Gathered as many as you can find. Sometime later, far enough from the bonfire to be hidden in the shadows, Sunny was looking for the dead soldiers with half a dozen flagons already weighing him down. Shivering in the cold, he finally stumbled on the last broken body clad in leather armor. The old veteran, the one that had wiped him from trying to accept Hero's flask, was badly injured and dying, but miraculously still clinging to life. Horrible wounds were covered with his chest and stomach, and he was clearly in a lot of pain. His time was running out. Sunny knelt beside the dying soldier and looked him over, searching for the man's flagon. What irony, he thought. The older man tried to focus his eyes on Sunny and weakly moved his hand, reaching for something. Sunny looked down and noticed a shattering sword lying on the ground not far from them. Curiously, he picked it up. All right, he's getting loot. Are you looking for this? Why are you guys like Vikings, longing to die with a weapon in your hand? The dying soldier didn't answer, watching the young slave with some unknown intense emotions in his eyes. Sunny sighed. Well, it might be as well. After I promised to watch you die. With that, he leaned forward and slit the... Oh my god, what the fuck? With that, he leaned forward and slit the old man's throat with the sharp edge of his broken blade. Then he threw it away. The soldier twitched, drowning in his own blood. Why would he do that? The expression in his eyes changed. Was it gratitude or hatred? Sunny did not know. Illusion or not, it was his first time killing a human. Sunny expected to feel guilt or fear, but actually there was nothing at all. It seemed, for the better or worse, his cruel upbringing in the real world had prepared him for this moment as well. He sat quietly near the old man, keeping him company on the last journey. After a while, the spell's voice came whispering into his ear. You have slain a dormant human, name unknown. Sunny flinched. All right, killing people is also an achievement? As far as the spell is concerned, they don't usually show this in webtoons and dramas. What the fuck? Breaking the fourth wall. He registered that the fact and put it away, but as it turned out, the spell wasn't done speaking. You have received a memory. Sunny froze, opening his eyes wide. Yes, come on in. Give me something good. Memories could be anything from weapons to enhancements. Once received from a dormant rank enemy, wouldn't be too powerful, but it was still a boon. A boon? Weightless and undetectable, also to be summoned from the nothingness with a simple thought. A memory was incredibly useful. What's more, unlike corporeal things, he would be able to bring it back with him to the real world. The advantage of having something like that back in the outskirts was hard to overestimate. A weapon, give me a sword, received a memory, silver bell, literally Elden Ring. He's getting the bell. Okay. Sunny sighed, disappointed. Well, with my luck, what was I expecting? Still, this thing was worth investing. Maybe it has a powerful enhancement like being able to send out destructive sonic waves or repelling incoming projectiles. Sunny summoned the runes and concentrated on the word Silver Bell. Immediately, an image of a small bell appeared in front of his eyes with a short string of text below. Silver Bell, a small memento of long lost home, which once brought its owner comfort and joy. Its clearly ringing can be heard from miles away. What a piece of crap, Sunny thought, dejected. His memory turned out to be pretty much useless. Like everything else he possessed, he was almost starting to see a theme in how the spell was treating him. No matter. Sunny, I scrolled down too much. Sunny dismissed ruins and got busy removing the dead man's fur cloak and warm, sturdy leather boots, and as an officer, the quality of these clothes was a notch above those of the simple soldiers. After putting them on, the young slave finally felt warm for the first time since the nightmare began, not considering the short time he had spent near the bonfire. Perfect, he thought. The cloak was a bit bloodied, but then again, so was Sunny. He looked around, easily piercing the veil in darkness with his tenderpost eyes. Heroes and scholars were still in the middle of their tasks. Shifty was supposed to be looking for the winter clothes, but was greedily pulling the ring off the dead man's fingers instead. Unseen to them, Sunny hesitated, considering if he had really thought things through well. His companions were unreliable, the future was too uncertain, even the requirements of passing the nightmare remained a mystery. Any decision he could make would have been a gamble at best. Still, he had to make some if he wanted to survive. Not wasting more time thinking, Sunny picked up the flagons and sighed. They spent the rest of the night sitting with their backs against the bonfire, staring fearfully into the night. Despite the exhaustion, no one can sleep. The possibility of the tyrant coming back to finish the 4 survivors off was too frightening. Only Hero seemed to be fine, calmly sharpening his words in the bright light dancing flames. The sound of the wet stone scraping against the blade was something comforting. At the break of dawn, when the sun had lazily begun to warm up the air, they loaded themselves with all the supplies they managed to gather and set out into the cold. Sunny looked back, taking in the sight of the stone platform for the last time. He managed to get past the place where the slave caravan was supposed to perish. What was going to happen next, no one could tell. All right, here we go. We just finished a chapter. Next chapter, chapter 9. But chapter 9 is called Wishful Thinking. There was a problem. They were planning to follow the road up to the mountain pass and then over it, getting as far away from the scene of the massacre as they could before the night came. However, the road was no more. At some point during the last months, or maybe even just yesterday, terrible rockfall occurred, obliterating whole segments of the narrow roadways and making its other parts untraversable. Sunny stood on the precipice of a vast chasm, looking down with no particular expression on his face. What do we do now? Scholar's voice was muffled by the collar of his scavenging fur cloak. His follower, Shifty, angrily looked around. His gaze stopped at Sunny, a suitable victim to vent his frustration. I'll tell you what we need to do. Get rid of some of the dead weight. He eyed Sunny's fine boots and turned to Hero. Listen to your lordship. The boy is too weak. He is slowing us down. Plus, he's weird. Doesn't he give up to creeps? The young soldier answered with a judgmental frown, but Shifty wasn't alone. Looking down, he's glaring at me. I swear to God, even if he joined the caravan, nothing had gone right. Maybe the old man was right. The boy is cursed by the shadow slave. Sunny struggled to not roll to his eyes. It was true that he was unlucky. However, the whole truth was opposite to what Shifty was trying to insinuate. It was not that he had attracted misfortune to the slave caravan. On the contrary, it was because the caravan was doomed to begin with what he had ended up here. Scholar cleared his throat. But I've never said that. Whatever, shouldn't we get rid of him just in case? He can't get on much longer anyway. Scholar gave Sunny a strange look. Perhaps Sunny was getting paranoid, but there seemed to be a bit of calculating coldness in the older slave's eyes. Finally, Scholar shook his head. Don't be too hasty, my friend. The boy might have proved useful later on. But Hero finally spoke up, putting an end to the quarrel. We're not going to leave anyone behind. Okay, that's a good motto. As for how much longer he'd be able to endure, just worry about yourself. Shifty clenched his teeth, but then he just waved a hand. Fine, so what do we do then? The four of them looked at the broken road, then down the slope of the mountain, and finally up where a sheer cliff wall was broken apart from the falling rocks. After a bit of silence, Scholar finally spoke. Actually, in the old days, there used to be a path leading to the peak of the mountain. I was about to say peak of Hornicus mountain range. That's a Lord of Mystery reference, since that's mostly what we've been reading. It was something used by the pilgrims. Later, the Empire had widened parts of the path and built a proper road on top of it, now leading to the mountain pass instead of the peak. Of course, he looked up. The remnants of the original path should still be somewhat above us. If we reach it, we should be able to find our way back to the undamaged section of the road. Everyone followed his gaze, shiftily, uncomfortably, as the prospect of climbing the treacherous slope, except for Hero, of course, who remained as calm as Saint. Due to the rockfall, the slope wasn't as almost vertical anymore, but still the incline was quite sharp. Shifty was the first one to speak. Climb that. Are you insane? Are you insane? Scholar helplessly shrugged. Do you have a better idea? No one did. After a bit of preparation, they began the ascent. Shifty and Scholar stubbornly carried the weapons. They had picked up the dead Scholar bodies, but Sunny, with some regret, decided to leave his newfound short sword behind. He knew that the climb was going to test the limits of their endurance. The sword might not have seemed to be heavy right now, but every extra gram of weight was bound. I lost my freaking place. But every extra gram of weight was bound to feel like a ton, all too small. As the weakest member of the group, he was already struggling to keep up, so there wasn't a lot of choice. Shedding for a few kilograms of iron that was the right thing to do. Walking up the mountain road with the weight of supplies on his shoulders was hard enough, but climbing up the mountain itself turned out to be pure torture. Just half an hour later, he felt like his muscles were going to melt, with his lungs on the verge of imploding. Clenching his teeth, Sunny continued to move forward, up and up. He had to constantly remind himself to watch his footings. On this unstable, icy slope, one misstep was enough to send a man trembling down his death. Just think about something pleasant, he thought. But what happy thoughts could he summon? Failing to come up with something else, Sunny began to imagine what reward he was going to receive at the end of this trial. The boon of the first nightmare was the most important thing given to an awakened by the spell. Sure, later trials could provide them with more abilities and vast improve their powers, but it was the first one that determined what role an awakened would be able to play, how great their potential would be, and what price they would have to pay, not to mention giving them the necessary tools to survive and grow in the dream realm. The main benefit of First Nightmare's boon was simple, yet possibly the most important. After completing the trial, aspirants were bestowed... I don't remember what aspirants, I'm not gonna lie. I assume aspirants are the people in the nightmare? Reading? You just caught cheating on my wife at a Coldplay custard. Fucking Bullseye. Are you the CEO? Is that who you were this whole time, Bullseye? Are you the CEO that went to the Coldplay concert? No way. It's crazy how everybody's beaming that on the kiss cams at every concert now. It's just wild. The man's most... Like, the guy's worst day of his life became a national phenomenon for the entire world. That's wild. Soul cores were the basis of one... Wait. Aspirants were bestowed with the ability to perceive and interact with soul cores. Soul cores were the basis of one's rank. Soul cores were the basis of one's rank and power. The stronger your core was, the greater your might would grow. Okay, that makes sense. The same went for nightmare creatures with a deadly covenant that, unlike humans, they could possess multiple cores. Okay, you can have more than one core. A lowly beast had just one, but a tyrant like a mountain king had 5. Coincidentally, the only way to improve your soul core was to consume the soul shards scavenged from the corpses of other dream realm inhabitants. Dream realm inhabitants. Are they talking about the people in the dream or the people that are in the night? The people that get sent to the nightmare? Sorry, since it's been 3 months, I'm kind of like, I remember most of it, but just there's some things I don't remember. The second benefit was less straightforward, but nevertheless vital. After completing the first nightmare, aspirants were elevated to the rank of dreamers. Oh, like Sunny, he's an aspirant. Aspirants were elevated to the rank of dreamers, colloquially tranquilly known as sleepers. I read that so wrong. And gain access to the dream realm itself. They would enter it on the first winter solstice after passing the trial and remained there until an exit was found, thus becoming fully awakened. The time between finishing the first nightmare and entering the dream realm was very important, as it was the last chance to train and prepare yourself to be a person they would receive. In Sunny's case, the time was only about a month, which was as bad as it gets. And then there was a final benefit unique to every aspirant passing the trial, the first aspect ability. This was a magic power that elevated awakened powers after mundane humans. Aspects abilities were discovered unique and powerful. Some could be categorized into types like combat, sorcery, and utility, but some were simply beyond imagination. Armed with the power of their abilities, Awakened had been able to save the world from the flood of nightmare creatures. However, the power that came with a catch. With the first ability, every Awakened also received a flaw. Okay, you get a positive and a negative gain. Sometimes called the counter, these flaws were as diverse as the abilities range from comparatively harmless to crippling, or in some cases even fatal. Knowing Sunny is probably going to be fatal. I wonder what type of ability Temple Slave would get. Sunny thought not too optimistic about his prospects. The choice of flaws, on the other hand, seemed to be almost limitless. Let's hope my aspect will evolve at the end of this fiasco, or even better, change completely. If the aspirant performed especially well, there was a chance of his given aspect going through an early evolution. Aspects just like Soul Course had ranked based on potential powers and rarity. The lowest rank was called Dormant. He's probably going to get a Dormant one. Oh, but Dormant sounds like it has a lot of room for growth, right? Let me raise this. Hopefully you guys can hear now. However, the power came with catch with the ability. I just read this. Where was Dormant? Dormant is somewhere here. Dormant followed by the Awakened, Ascend, Transcendent, Supreme, Sacred, and Divine. I feel like his dormant ability is eventually like a divine ability in the making, and he just won't know it yet. Although no one has ever seen the last one, with the amount of crap it had put me through, the spell, if it was any consents, had to give me at least an Awakened aspect, right? Or maybe even Ascended one. No, he's gonna get Dormant. Finally, there was a tiny possibility of receiving a true name, something like an honorary title bestowed by the spell to its favorite Awakened. The name itself had no benefit, but every famous Awakened seems to have one. It was considered to be the highest mark of excellence. However, the number of people who had managed to get a true name during their first nightmare was so small that Sunny didn't even bother thinking about it. Who needs excellence? Give me power. He cursed, feeling that this attempt at wishful thinking had only made him more depressed and angry. Maybe I'm allergic to dreaming. An allergy like that would truly be ironic, considering that he was determined to spend half of his remaining life in a dream world, if he even survives long enough to get there, that is. However, Sunny's mental escapade was not completely useless. Looking up from the slippery rocks under his feet, he noticed that the sun was already considerably low. Come to think of it, the air also seemed to be much colder. At least it helped me pass the time. Sunny thought the night was approaching. Okay. Dormant is kind of like how a half sequence 9 Beyonders in LTM. Okay, that, you know what? Thank you, MT. That makes a lot more sense. Okay, so you can either be born with like a half sequence 9, or you can be like born with like a sequence 1. Okay, no. I didn't drop it. It was just on. It's technically just on indefinite hiatus until we finish Lord of the Mysteries. To be fair. Yeah, just because Lord of the Mysteries takes so much time, and like my schedule is so like limited to like 2 to 3 hours a day. We've been mostly reading Lord of the Mysteries, but hopefully, knock on wood, I can read this at least once or twice a week. Chapter 10, First Man Down. By the time they decided to stop, Sunny was on the verge of fainting. After hours and hours of traversing the rough mountain slope, his body was almost at its limit. However, to everyone's surprise, Shifty seemed to be doing worse than him. All right, but let's keep reading. The roguish slave's eyes were muddy and unfocused, aimlessly wandering around. His breath was ragged and shallow, as though something was exerting pressure on his lungs. He looked feverish and unwell. As soon as Hero found a suitable place for camp, Shifty simply collided from the ground. The most unnerving part about all of this was that the lack of angry crushing that they had already gotten used to. The slave lay silent and motionless, with only movements of his chest betraying that he was still alive. Several moments later, he uncorked his flagon with a shaky hand and greedily drank a few large gulps. "Conserve your water, Hero," said, a hint of concern somehow finding its way into his usually stoic voice. Disregarding these words, Shifty drank more, emptying the flagon completely. Scholar didn't look much better than him. Arduous climb took a heavy toll on the older slave. Despite the unbearable cold, he was sweaty with blood bloodshot eyes and a grim expression on his face. Being the weakest of the three, Sunny had somehow managed to endure the best. Can't we just melt like snow once there's no more water? Hero gave Scholar a complicated look. There might come a time when we won't be able to make a fire, as to not attract unwanted attention. No one commented, knowing perfectly well whose attention they had to avoid. The memory of Mountain King's horror was still fresh in their minds. Luckily, today's hero had managed to find a natural alcove in the mountain wall, perched precautiously behind a narrow edge. The first was hidden by the rocks, allowing them to enjoy its warmth without the fear of being noticed. No one was in the mood to talk, so they just roasted slices of oxen meat above the flames and ate it in silence. By the time the skies had turned completely black, Shifty and Scholar were already asleep. Lost in thrall of their own nightmares, he took out his sword and moved to the edge of the rock outcropping, tried to rest as well as all take the first watch. Sunny gave him a nod and laid down near the fire, dead tired. Falling asleep inside a dream was a new experience for him, but unexpectedly it turned out to be quite a mundane. As soon as his head touched the ground, his consciousness slipped into the darkness. What happens if you dream within a dream? After what felt like only a second, someone had gently shaken him awake. Groggy and distorted, Sunny blinked a few times, finally noticing Hero hovering above him. These two didn't look too well, so it's better to give them some time to recover. Don't let the flames go out and wake up once the sun starts to rise, or if the beasts appear. Sunny silently rose and changed his place with Hero, who added a couple of logs into the fire and was soon fast asleep. For a few hours, he was on his own. The skies were black with dim stars and a sharp crescent of a newborn moon. However, its light was not enough to pierce the darkness that enveloped the mountain. Only Sunny eyes seemed to be able to do so. He sat quietly. Now I feel like the music is too loud. The skies were black with dim stars and a sharp crescent of the newborn moon. However, its light was not enough to pierce the darkness that enveloped the mountain. Only Sunny's eyes seemed to be able to do so. He sat quietly looking down the way they came. Despite the fact that they had managed to climb quite high during the previous days, he could still see the distant ribbon of the roads. He could even trace it back to the stone platform where the fight with the tyrant had taken place. The tiny dots littering the stones were the dead bodies of the slaves. As he was watching them, a dark figure slowly crawled on the platform beneath the cliff. It stayed motionless for a while and then moved forward, scraping its claws against the ground. Every time a claw hit on the bodies, the tyrant would grab and bring it to its maw. The window brought the muffled sounds of crunching bones to Sunny's ears. They flinched, accidentally pushed a small rock off. No, he flinched, accidentally pushed a small rock off the ledge. It fell, hit the slope, and then rolled down, causing a few more to follow. The noise of these falling rocks sounded like thunder in the silent night. Far below, the tyrant suddenly turned its head, looking directly at Sunny, so now the tyrant sees him, okay? Sunny froze, petrified. He was scared to make even a tiny sound. For a while, he even forgot to breathe. The tyrant was staring directly at him, not doing anything. A few torturous seconds passed, each feeling like an eternity. The tyrant calmly turned away and continued to devour dead slaves, as though he had not seen Sunny at all. It's blind. Sunny suddenly Oh, he can't see! It's blind. Sunny suddenly understood. He inhaled, watching the Mountain King with widened eyes. It was true, the creature could not see. Looking back at everything they had happened earlier, he grew more and more certain of his guess. Those milk expression's eyes, come to think of it, he never saw the tyrant moving at them at all. It's because when Sunny was pushing the wagon off the cliff, the tyrant only reacted after the wagon had started to fall. Oh! So the tyrant never saw him. He only heard when the wagon went off the cliff. Okay. Had started to fall, scraping loudly against the rocks, and then that's when like the chain went around his neck, right? You see, I still remember. Of course, it was all making sense now. At the break of dawn, Sunny had woken the others up. Hero had hoped that a full night's rest would do Shifty and Scholar some good, but his hopes were crushed. Somehow the two slaves looked even worse than before. It was as though yesterday's climb had overstrained Scholar too much. However, Shifty's condition could not be explained by simply overexertion. Wait, so let me just get this straight before I forget. Shifty and Scholar are their two slaves, and then Hero is the remaining soldier. Got it. However, Shifty's condition could not be explained by simple overexertion. He was deadly pale and shaky, with half-consciousness eyes and a lost look on his face. What's wrong with him? Scholar, who himself was not doing very well, helplessly shook his head. It might be mountain sickness. It affects different people differently. His voice sounded raspy and weak. I'm fine, assholes, get out of my face. Shifty had trouble forming full sentences, but still insisted that he was alright. Hero frowned and took out the supplies that the defiant slave was supposed to carry before adding them to his own load. After hesitating a little, he gave some to Sunny too. Did anything happen while we were asleep? Sunny stared at him for a few seconds. The monster ate the dead. The young soldiers frowned deadpan. deep end. How do you know? I heard it. Hero moved to the edge and looked down, trying to make out the distant stone platform. After a minute or so, he clenched his jaw, showing signs of uncertainty for the first time. Then we'll have to move faster. If the creature is finished with all the bodies, it will come for us next. We need to find the old path before nightfall. Frightened and dejected, and he doesn't tell him he's blind. What the heck? He's keeping that from them. Then we'll have to move faster. If the creature is finished with the bodies at all, it'll come for us next. We need to find the old path before nightfall. Frightened and dejected, they set out again and continued the climb. Sunny was slowly dying under the weight, and they added load. Thankfully, Shifty and Scholar had already drunk most of the water, lighting it a little. This is how he thought. They climbed higher and higher and higher. The sun was climbing with them, slowly approaching Zenith. There was nothing, no laughs, only straight briefings. Each of the 4 survivors were concentrated on his own steps and footings. However, Shifty was falling farther and farther behind. His strength was abandoning him. And then at some point, Sunny heard a desperate scream. Turning around, he only had time to see a panic-stricken face. Then Shifty fell backwards, his foot slipping on icy covered rocks. He's going to get eaten, right? He's going to fall down to it. He hit the ground hard and rolled down, still trying to grab onto something, but it was too late. That's bad. Frozen in place and powerless, they could only watch as his body crumbled down the slope, leaving body marks on the rocks. With each second, Shifty looked less like a man and more like a ragdoll. He's dead, dude. A handful of moments later, he finally came to a halt, hitting the top of a large protruding stone in a pile of broken flesh. Shifty was dead. What am I reading, dude? I'm gonna be honest. I really like reading this series because of how, like, dark and bleak it is, man. I love how much of a stark contrast this is from from... Now, actually, hold up. Lord of the Mysteries is very dark and bleak, but at least right now, it's just starting off dark and bleak, and I love this. So let's keep reading. We still have a little bit more time. We still have about 15 minutes. I think we should be able to read another chapter or 2. Let me just make sure I have it recording. At least from everything I've read online, people say SSS not only has an amazing Volume 1, what's up, Lone Wolf, but people have also, like, unanimously agreed that Volume 1 of Shadow Slave is like the best Volume 1 you could ever read. So I do have high expectations, and so far I have not been let down. I love how different this is from anything I've read so far. But chapter 11, I put chapter 1 by accident. That is so weird. Because now we're in the double digits, it's crossed out. But chapter 11 is called Crossroad. Perfect. Chapter 11 is called Crossroads. The 3 of them stood motionless, looking down in uneasy silence. What happened to Shifty didn't come as a shock, but it was still a hard thing to digest. A ominous feeling settled in their hearts. Seeing the broken body of their companion, it was too easy to imagine one of them sharing the same fate. No one knew what to say. After a minute or so, Scholar finally sighed. It's a good thing that you took most of the supplies he had been carrying, or else they would have lost everything. Damn. A bit heartless, but not wrong. Yeah, that both are right. Sunny thought, giving the oldest slave a careful look. Scholar frowned, realizing that his mask of a kind-hearted gentleman had slipped for a second and hurriedly added in some tone, "May you rest in peace, my friend." Wow, what a performance. He's actually just mean on the inside. What a scholar. Actually, Sunny had not believed in benevolent act for a second. Every kid from the outskirts knew that people who acted kind for no reason were the ones to be most wary of. They were either fools or monsters. Scholars didn't seem like a fool, so Sunny became cautious of him for the moment they met. He got this far by being a mistrustful cynic, and there was no reason to change now. We have to go, Hero said, casting one look down at him. Oh, wow. I'm so used to scrolling down on the other platform where I've been reading. I'm like, okay, hold up. I'm still getting used to the scrolling on this. We have to go, Hero said, casting one look down. His voice was even, but Sunny could feel as well as a well of emotion behind him. He just couldn't tell what the emotion was. Scholar sighed and turned away too. Sunny stared at the blooded rocks for a few more seconds. Why do I feel so guilty? He thought, bewildered, but by this unexpected reaction, he got what he deserved. What the fuck? A little unsettled, Sunny turned around and followed his 2 remaining companions. Just like that, they left Shifty behind and continued to climb. So now it's Sunny, Scholar, and Hero. At this altitude, traversing the mountain was getting harder and harder. The wind was slamming into them with enough force to throw a person. How are they supposed to kill the tyrant now? With just them 3. The wind was slamming into them with enough force to throw a person off the balance if they were not careful, making every step seem like a gamble. The air was becoming too thin to breathe due to the lack of oxygen. Sunny was starting to feel dizzy and nauseated. It was as though they were all slowly suffocating. Altitude sickness was not something one could overcome with effort. It was subtle and overbearing at the same time, affecting the strong and the weak with no regard for their fitness and endurance. If his luck was bad, an elite athlete could scramble to it faster than a random passerby. It was just a question of your body's innate aptitude and adaptability. Luckily, ones were able to get over it after experiencing mild symptoms. The others were something crippling for the day or week, suffering from all kinds of torture side effects. Some even died. As though all that wasn't bad enough, it was getting colder. The warm clothes and fur weren't enough to keep the chill at bay away. Sunny left simultaneously feverish and freezing, cursing every decision he had made in his life to end up here on the endless icy slopes. This mountain was not a place for humans. And yet they had to go on. A few hours passed. Despite everything, the 3 survivors continued to struggle forward, slowly moving higher and higher. Wherever the old path scholar had talked about was, by now it couldn't have been far. At least that's what Sunny was hoping for, but at some point he started to doubt if the path even existed. Maybe the older slave lied, maybe the path was no longer destroyed by the ravings of time, maybe they had already missed it without even noticing. Just as he was about to fall into despair, they finally found it. It was weathered and narrow, barely enough for 2 people to walk side by side. The path wasn't paved, but rather cut from the black rock by some unknown tool or magic. Winding its way up the mountain like a tail of a sleeping dragon. Here and there it was hidden beneath the snow, but most importantly it was flat. Sunny had never been that happy to see something flat in his life. Without saying a word, Scholar dropped his rucksack and sat down. He was deathly pale, gasping for air like a fish out of water. Despite that, there was a slight grin on his face. Told you. Hero gave him a nod and looked around. A few seconds later, he turned back and triumphant slave. Stand up, it's not time for you to rest. Scholar blinked a few times, then glanced at him with pleading eyes. Just give me a few minutes. The young soldier was going to retort, but Sunny suddenly put a hand on his shoulder. Hero turned to face him. What is it? It's gone. Wait, what's gone? Sunny gestured down, back the way he came. Shifty's body. Oh, it ate him. Shifty's body, it's gone. Hero stared at him for a few moments, clearly failing to understand what Sunny was trying to say. All right, they don't know that Shifty's name is Shifty. Ahem, awkward. He wanted to explain, but both Scholar and Hero seemed to have... Wait, they didn't even know his name? He wanted to explain, but both Scholar and Hero seemed to have grasped his meaning. Simultaneously, they moved to the edge of the stone path and looked down, trying to spot a place where Shifty had met his end. Indeed, the splattering of blood could still be seen on the jagged rocks, but the corpse itself was nowhere to be found. Oh, shit. This is so dark, bro. Scholar flinched back and crawled as far away from the edge as he could. The young soldier also backed away, instinctively grabbing the handle of the sword. The 3 of them exchanged tense looks, clearly understanding the implication of Shifty's disappearance. It's the monster, Scholar said, even paler than before. It's following us. Hero gritted his teeth. You are right. And if it's that close, we will inevitably be forced to fight it soon. Okay. The idea of fighting the tyrant was as frightening as it was preposterous. He might as well have said that they will all be dead soon. The truth of it was painfully clear to both Sunny and Scholar. But the older slave surprisingly did not look panicked. Instead, he lowered his head and gazed. He lowered his gaze and quietly said, "Not necessarily." Hero and Sunny turned to him all ears. The young soldier raised an eyebrow. Explain. Here it comes, Scholar sighed. The beast had traced us this far in just a day. That means that there are 2 most probable possibilities. Either it's smart enough to realize where we are going, or it's following the scent of blood. After a bit of thinking, Hero nodded, agreeing with the logic. The older slave smiled, wildly continued. Whether it is one or another, we can throw him off our trail and buy us some time. How do we do that? Sacrifice Sunny. Despite the urgency in Hero's voice, Scholar hesitated and remained silent. Why are you not answering? Speak. The older slave sighed again and slowly, as though against his will, answered. Sunny was waiting for the moment for a while now. We'll just have to make the boy bleed, drag him down the path, and then leave them as a bit. What the fuck, dude? What? Would just have to make the boy bleed, drag him down the path, then leave him there as bait and go up instead? His sacrifice will save our lives. Right on time. If Sunny wasn't mad and scared witless, of course, he wouldn't have smiled. His judgment... He has such bad luck. His judgment, it seems, was eerily on point. Affirmation was always nice, but not in this situation, where being right also meant potentially being used as monster bait. He remembered the words Scholar had spoken back when Shifty was campaigning to have Sunny killed. Don't be too hasty, my friend. The boy might prove useful later on. These words, which had sounded benevolent then, now turned out to hide a much more sinister meaning. What a bastard. Now it all depends on whether or not Hero would decide to follow through the Scholar's plans. The young soldier blinked, astonished. What do you mean, make him bleed? Scholar shook his head. It's simple, really. If the monster knows where we are going, we have no choice but to abandon our plans, to reach the mountain pass and go over the peak of the mountain instead. If the monster is following the scent of blood, we have to use one of us as bait to mislead it. He paused. Only by leaving a bleeding man further down the path can we reliably avoid the pursuit, no matter how it is tracking us. This is so mean. What a fucked up scholar. Hero stood motionless, his eyes jumped between Scholar and Sunny. After a few seconds, he asked, "How can you bring yourself to propose something so vile?" The older slave masterfully pretended to look aggrieved and somber. "Of course, it pains me." What a little shit. Of course it pains me, but if we do nothing, all three of us will die. Hopefully, Hero gets Scholar instead. This was at least the boy's death will save 2 lives. The gods will reward him for his sacrifice. Gee, what a silver tongue. I'm almost convincing myself. The young silver opened his mouth, then closed it again, hesitating. Sunny was silently watching the other 2 survivors, measuring his chances of coming on top in a fight. Scholar was already halfway to being a corpse, so overpowering him would not be a problem. Hero, however, here presented an obstacle. I think that's a good cliffhanger. Just since it's been an hour since we've been live, we're gonna leave it there. I do apologize that we only read until chapter 11, but don't worry, we should be resuming over the weekend. We should be reading at least one more time on either Saturday or Sunday. I'll double check with you guys, and we'll come back and we'll see when we'll keep reading it. But don't worry, we are gonna read at least one more time for about another hour on either Saturday or Sunday, depending on what day I go live. So for now, we're going to end stream. I mean, we're not going to end stream. We're going to end Shadow Slave's part, and we're going to transition to our primary thing, Lord of the Mysteries. But don't forget, once we're done with Lord of the Mysteries, we should be fully transferring over to Shadow Slave, depending, unless, like, my goal is to finish Lord of the Mysteries, and then from there, I can branch out and read, like, manhwa, manga, and other web novels, right? Depending how it goes. So right now it's still up in the air if this is going to be our new primary thing, or if Revered Insanity is going to be our new primary thing, or if we'll transfer over and do a little bit of more manhwa. I'm still undecided. Just since I have only so much limited time, it's kind of hard to, like, I think somebody said it, I think D said it earlier. Like, if I spread myself too thin, it might be a little bit hard. But for now, if you like what you see and you want to see more, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share the video, like the video. Turn that bell icon on, and we will see how this nightmare ends. And I promise you, we're not going to go back into an IRL nightmare, and there will not be another 3-month time gap. We will be reading more this week and next week. Peace. Have a beautiful day. And if you also want to listen to somebody read Lord of the Mysteries, that's also on our playlist. We just uploaded LSC. We should hopefully be able to time manage ourselves a little bit better. I know I've been saying that for the last 3-4 months. But knock on wood. Peace, and have a beautiful day. I'll see you guys very soon, okay?